Are you enjoying seeing your sons step up to the moment and the whole family concept?
Bro,
You
no,
that?
I don't. I don't enjoy it. I do not. Simply because I've spent so much time trying to get this little nigga off the ledge.
Talking about King.
Yes. And now he has justifiable means to undo all of the teachings that I've been teaching.
Got it.
I do not like this. No, I do not enjoy it.
T.I. just went public with his raw, unfiltered reaction to his son King getting tangled up in one of hip-hop's most explosive beefs, and he did not hold back. He called King out for crossing a serious line by even going near 50's mother's grave, making it clear that some moves can't be undone. This is not just messy family drama playing out online. This is about respect, legacy, and watching your own lessons get flipped upside down in real time. You can hear the frustration in T.I.'s voice, and it runs deeper than music charts or rap lyrics. Let me break this whole situation down for you. T. I built his name as one of the South's most respected kings, a trap pioneer who earned respect in every room he stepped into. He did not just drop hits, he built an empire from Atlanta that stretched across the entire Southeast and beyond. But now his son, King Harris, has stepped straight into a battle zone that has been simmering for over 20 years, packed with money, pride, and old grudges that never really faded. The tension between T.I. and 50 Cent was never just industry gossip. It carried real history and real consequences that shaped how people moved around them. So when King inserted himself into that situation, it did not just spark headlines. It shook a legacy that took decades to build. To understand why T.I. sounds so heated right now, you have to rewind to when two massive egos first collided and changed the temperature of hip-hop. Back in the early 2000s, the South was fighting hard for respect in a game dominated by New York heavyweights. Artists like Jay-Z, Nas, and the notorious B.I.G. had already defined what real hip-hop was supposed to sound like, and the pressure was intense. T.I. was grinding with Grand Hustle Entertainment, pushing Atlanta to the front and shaping the trap sound that would later take over the world. At the same time, 50 Cent was running New York with G-Unit, fresh off an album that moved over 870,000 copies in its first week and stamped him as one of the most powerful figures in rap. When those two worlds clashed, it was never going to stay quiet. And now, the next generation just reignited a feud that never fully cooled off. Curtis was known for his sharp business mind, his talent for turning controversy into profit, and his readiness to clash with anyone who questioned his spot. At first, there was real respect between these two heavyweights. They were both street-smart entrepreneurs who understood the game went way beyond music. Both had survived real-life pressure, T.I. with his Atlanta roots and 50 with his Queens background, and the shooting that almost ended everything for him. They saw each other as authentic voices who had actually lived the stories in their lyrics. But in hip-hop, respect can flip into rivalry fast when money, territory, and ego enter the picture. The first real tension showed up around 2004 and 2005, when both artists were sitting at the top of the charts. T.I. had just dropped Urban Legend and was pushing the King of the South title heavy, making it clear he wanted the crown. At the same time, 50 was claiming control over the whole rap game with the Massacre-smashing sales records. This was not just friendly competition over who had the hotter single. This was about market control, who had the clubs, who had the radio stations, who shaped the culture, and most important, whose narrative the hip-hop world would ride with. Both men were stepping into films, clothing brands, and serious business deals, creating pressure that stretched far beyond album numbers. Here is where it really escalated. The tension was less about diss tracks and more about power plays behind the scenes. Both were building multimedia empires designed to last long after their rap careers cooled down. T.I. was stepping into acting with films like ATL while turning Grand Hustle into a full entertainment machine. This was a chess match over influence, money streams, and long-term dominance. And once that kind of competition starts, it rarely stays friendly. When you have two alpha personalities trying to dominate the same business lanes, something is bound to crack. Industry insiders started whispering about clashes over tour dates, venue control, and which crew had priority in certain cities. This was not just rap talk. This was business warfare with real money on the line and real consequences if things went left. The tension got deeper when both sides began signing artists from each other's regions. T.I. was stacking Grand Hustle with talent from across the South, building a movement that felt unified and strategic. At the same time, 50 was pushing G-Unit past New York, looking to plant flags in new markets. That shift created territorial pressure that went beyond pride. It became a battle over influence, pipelines, and long-term control of the culture. Record labels saw opportunity in the chaos. Executives tried to play both sides, squeezing profit out of the rivalry, while carefully keeping distance between the camps. They would book both names for major events, but structure things so they would not cross paths in ways that could spark real-life problems. Behind the scenes, it was a balancing act that required precision. Then 50 started making slick comments about Southern rap as a whole, questioning its lyrical depth and street credibility compared to the East Coast. For T.I., that was not just shade. That was a direct shot at the foundation he had built brick by brick. It felt like disrespect toward an entire region that had supported him. T.I. responded by leaning harder into his king title, making it clear that respect was not optional and that dismissing the South would not slide. He sent subtle messages in his verses and made public remarks that hinted at 50's relevance. But 50 was never the type to retreat. His brand was built on pressure, from early street conflicts to headline rap feuds, and he was not about to switch that energy now. T.I.'s challenge was viewed as open disrespect that needed a fast response. And 50 answered in the only way he knows how, straight up and confrontational. The tension stopped being quiet industry gossip and started spilling into real-life spaces. At award shows, album release parties, and packed club appearances, witnesses say there were moments where things almost turned physical. Crews were staring each other down, security had to step in, and executives were sweating about booking both names on the same flyer. The rivalry escalated once the subliminal shots started landing in their music. T.I. began slipping in lines that anyone tuned in could trace back to 50. Meanwhile, 50 kept it louder and more direct, sticking to his pattern of making every conflict public and personal. This was not subtle chess. This was strategic pressure, track by track. Sales numbers turned into scoreboards. Both camps tracked first-week numbers like they were keeping stats in a championship series, using chart positions as ammo in interviews and online talk. Radio stations felt the squeeze, trying to support both sides without looking biased. Then things reached another level in the mid-2000s when the two were booked for overlapping promo runs at a major industry conference. What started as business positioning quickly felt personal, with reputations and long-term relationships on the line. 50, never one to duck smoke, began publicly questioning T.Y.'s street credibility and business instincts. He suggested the King of the South title was self-appointed, rather than earned, and cast doubt on whether Atlanta's hip-hop scene could really compete with New York's legacy. At that point, it was no longer just about diss records. It was a direct attack on the foundation of T.Y.'s image and the regional pride that made him a leading voice for Southern hip-hop. T.I. had positioned himself as the voice of a whole movement, and 50's attacks threatened to chip away at everything he stood for. That was bigger than pride. That was legacy. T.I. responded in a calculated way, showing he was not shaken by 50's reputation for ending careers through public feuds. He made it clear that being from the South did not mean being weak, and that 50's New York energy and past wins over other rappers would not automatically translate in his territory. The tension rose when their camps started jumping in. G-Unit members like Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo began sending shots toward Grand Hustle artists, and T.I.'s side answered back by questioning G-Unit's unity and business structure. It stopped being a two-man issue and turned into a crew versus crew situation. Behind closed doors, industry insiders say there were meetings meant to cool things down before it spiraled. But pride blocked progress. Neither side wanted to look like the one who folded first, and that stalemate kept the pressure building. Then both artists dropped tracks that were clearly aimed at each other, even though no names were said directly. T.I.'s lyrics grew sharper, referencing details and traits that listeners could easily connect to 50. On the other side, 50 stuck to his formula of bold confrontation wrapped in slick wordplay. These were not random diss records thrown out for attention. They were strategic strikes meant to dent credibility, shake confidence, and shift public opinion. Both understood a key rule of hip-hop. Perception can become reality. Whoever controlled the narrative could control the outcome. Media outlets poured gasoline on the situation, breaking down every lyric and every interview for hidden meaning. Magazine covers, radio segments, and early internet forums turned into battlegrounds where fans and insiders chose sides. What started as tension between two stars became a culture-wide debate about power, authenticity, and who really held the crown. Both teams were moving carefully behind the scenes. Security was tightened, travel routes were adjusted, and public appearances had to be coordinated with precision to avoid any real-life clashes. The rivalry had already cost both sides time, money, and peace of mind. Then the story took a turn nobody expected. The next generation stepped into the frame. Years later, the tension resurfaced in a risky way when T.I.'s son, King Harris, decided to involve himself. Trying to build his own name in hip-hop while carrying a famous last name, King released a diss track aimed straight at 50 Cent. The move stunned the culture. The record was aggressive and openly disrespectful, pushing past lines that even seasoned rap rivals usually avoid. He went after 50's deceased mother, stepping into territory that has long been considered off-limits in hip-hop conflicts. Even industry veterans who have seen decades of rap drama were caught off guard by how far it went. People across the streets and the business side paused, waiting to see how 50 would respond. Curtis Jackson built his image on never backing down, but firing back at a teenager, especially his rival's son, created a complicated situation that traditional beef rules did not fully cover. And this is where the human side of the story shows up. Instead of praise, King's actions placed T.I. in a tough position. The veteran rapper suddenly had to balance being a father with being a respected figure in hip-hop. He was stuck between protecting his son and protecting a legacy that had taken decades to build. Supporting his son would mean backing behavior that crossed serious lines, but calling him out publicly risked exposing family business and possibly weakening his own child's image. That is the tightrope T.I. found himself walking. This moment showed the real pressure successful rappers face when their kids want the same spotlight, but do not yet have the experience to move safely in a space that can turn hostile fast. T.I. has spoken for years about teaching respect, boundaries, and the difference between being strong and being reckless. The generational gap was obvious. King looked at the feud as a chance to stamp his name and prove he was not just living off his father's legacy. T.I., on the other hand, saw the long game. He understood how one impulsive move could strain business relationships, damage trust, and even create real-world safety risks. In recently surfaced footage, T.I.'s real emotions came through without any filter. Fans saw a side of him that rarely shows up in interviews or performances. The strain in his voice was clear as he said, "I don't enjoy it. I do not simply because I've spent so much time trying to get this little off the ledge." He did not sound proud. He sounded tired and concerned. He added, "And now he has justifiable means to undo all of the teachings that I've been teaching." That was not hype. That was a father feeling like years of guidance were being tested in public. He doubled down, saying, "I do not like this. No, I do not enjoy it," making it clear he was not celebrating the aggression. The footage showed layers of frustration. As a father, he was disappointed in his son's judgment. As a businessman, he worried about fractured alliances. As a man who has lived through real conflict, he understood consequences his teenage son might not fully grasp yet. The family dynamic made it even more complicated. I mentioned that his other son, Damani, kept us cool and is always cool, pointing out the sharp contrast in how his children handle pressure. One son was escalating tension in a public way, while the other leaned toward calm and restraint. For T.I., that contrast likely made the situation feel even heavier, because it was not just about a rap beef anymore. It was about guidance, growth, and the future of his family name. This situation stopped being just rap drama. It became a test of T.I.'s role as a father, a leader in his household, and a teacher of life lessons. You could hear the weight in his words as he talked about the corner his son backed him into. Years of preaching respect, boundaries, patience, and thinking before acting were suddenly clashing with teenage impulse and the hunger to stand out in hip-hop. He said it plain, "I'm a logical, reasonable man of respect, bro, and I raised my children to be men of respect." There was real confusion in that statement. T.I. was trying to process how his son could move in a way that felt so out of step with everything he had been taught. The moment exposed something bigger inside hip-hop culture too. Legacy matters, respect matters, and there are unwritten codes that usually guide how far beef is supposed to go. T.I.'s reaction made one thing clear. Even artists with deep street credibility understand certain lines are not meant to be crossed. His long-running tension with 50 Cent had always centered on territory, business, and pride. It was competitive. It was strategic. But when King targeted 50's deceased mother, the tone of the conflict shifted completely. That move stepped into territory many see as sacred, blurring the line between lyrical combat and something far more personal. For 50, the situation created a tricky dilemma. Responding directly to a teenager, even if it was his rival's son, could make him look small and open doors to complications beyond music. Ignoring it, on the other hand, risked being interpreted by some as weakness, which clashes with the image he built over decades of never backing down. The culture watched closely, knowing whatever move he made could influence how future generational clashes play out. Reactions across hip-hop were divided. Some younger voices applauded King's boldness, seeing it as raw competition and fearless energy. Others, especially veterans, criticized him sharply for crossing boundaries and potentially putting his family in harm's way. Many in the industry could understand T.Y.'s inner conflict. He could be proud of his son's drive and talent, yet deeply alarmed by the judgment behind the move. That tension between ambition and wisdom is what made this moment feel heavier than a typical rap feud. A lot of veteran artists have dealt with similar moments when their children stepped into hip-hop trying to carry the torch. It always brings up the same hard questions. How far is too far in a beef? What happens when family gets pulled into it? And does the culture need to rethink some of the traditions that once felt normal, but now carry real risks? The media locked in on the family angle, but the bigger story was how old rivalries can spill into a new generation that did not live through the original tension. For T.I., the impact hit fast, and from multiple angles. He had to address his son publicly, protect his own name, and keep long-standing industry relationships steady at the same time. That is not an easy balance when emotions are high and the spotlight is bright. The exclusive footage revealed a man split between love and responsibility. On one side, he is a father who wants to protect his child. On the other, he is a businessman who understands how fragile alliances and reputations can be. It turned into a real lesson about legacy and how conflicts that stretch across decades can land on the shoulders of people who were not even around when they started. T.I. trying to correct his son while defending his own credibility showed just how messy it gets when personal life and professional image collide. The original tension between T.I. and 50 Cent had simmered for years as a competitive but controlled rivalry between two sharp entrepreneurs. King's involvement shifted that dynamic because he did not grow up navigating the same unwritten codes or calculating long-term consequences. That gap in experience changed the energy around the entire situation. Right now, things appear tense but contained. T.I. is still working to guide his son while managing the fallout from the diss track, trying to balance support with necessary discipline. 50 Cent has shown restraint, possibly recognizing that engaging directly with a teenager could create more problems than it solves. His silence can be seen as strategic growth rather than weakness. The story is still unfolding. King Harris is young and still shaping his path. He has room to learn, adjust, and rebuild trust through smarter decisions. Or he could deepen the divide if he continues moving without thinking through the impact. The next steps will say a lot about maturity, legacy, and whether this moment becomes a turning point or a lasting stain. T.I.'s real challenge now is not about charts or rivalries. It is about guiding his son toward wisdom while still allowing him to carve out his own identity in hip-hop. What we are seeing is a generational clash. Respect versus rebellion. Experience versus impulse. Raising a young man in this industry is not simple, especially when the spotlight is constant and the pressure to prove yourself is loud. This is bigger than rap bars. It is a family story unfolding on one of the biggest stages in music, with ripple effects that could shape how hip-hop handles family boundaries and conflicts going forward. No cap, This moment proves that wearing the crown comes with weight far beyond the studio or the boardroom. The emotion in that exclusive footage was not performance. It was a father feeling the strain of watching years of guidance get tested in public. He is trying to protect his son, protect his name, and protect relationships he spent decades building. That kind of pressure is heavy, and it does not disappear when the cameras turn off. And at the end of the day, this situation reminds everyone that even in the middle of intense rap tension, family and respect still hold real value. Legacy is not just about hits and headlines. It is about how you handle moments that could define your name for years to come. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think T.I. handled this the right way? Was King out of line or just trying to prove himself in a tough industry? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who follows hip-hop culture closely. I will catch you in the next one.